Hi guys, so I have got the most exciting planner ever to show you. Some of you already know about this from Instagram. I got the most incredible present from my friend PlannerGirl777 who brought this back for me from Japan, and I'm just extremely grateful to her. Thank you so much, PlannerGirl777. If you're not already subscribed to her channel, please check it out. I'll link it down below. She has a fantastic planner channel on YouTube. So I found out about the Jibun Techo a couple of months ago. I saw a review of it on YouTube. There aren't many reviews of it. I'll link the ones that I know of down below. It's one of the more popular planners in Japan, and it's kind of similar to the Hobonichi, but quite different as well. So obviously this would pique my interest. And it is a really, really interesting planner, so I can't wait to show it to you. It's not widely available outside of Japan, but it is sold in the Etsy shop Kawaii Tokyo, which I'll link down below. And it comes in two sizes, the A5 Slim, which is this size, and the B6 Slim, which is the same size as the Hobonichi Weeks. So for size comparison, the A5 Slim, if you compare it to a true A5 like this is my Leuchtturm A5, you can see that it's the same height. It's inside this plastic cover, so it's a little bit taller, but the actual planner is pretty much the same height, but it's narrower. It's actually much more similar to the large Moleskine, so if we compare these two, you can see that this is just about exactly the same size, so hopefully that will give you a good idea. Then if you compare it to a standard size traveler's notebook insert, you can see that that is narrower again. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what the size is like. So it's quite an interesting size. I'll show you later what I'm thinking about for cover options, because this comes in a package like this with 3 books in it. So it's like a 3-in-1, as it says here, and it comes in this plastic cover. So I am actually quite keen to unpack this and take out the different parts and put it in a traveler's notebook, because that seems like the obvious thing to do with it to me. If you order this from Kawaii Tokyo, I've seen that she has them listed separately, so you can just order the planner part and you can order the other 2 booklets separately, and I think you might be able to order them in a package as well. So I got this in the package with all 3, which I'll explain in a moment. So as you can see on the cover here, it says 3-in-1 life log diary. It comes with a diary, which is weekly, a life book, which I'll go through, and an idea pad, which is just a blank grid memo pad. So the idea is that you use all of these 3 in conjunction, kind of like the Traveler's Notebook system, but they're all in the same book together. But if you do buy it from Kawaii Tokyo, you can buy them individually and say, for example, just buy the weekly planner if you don't want the whole package. So let me just take this off so you can see the cover. Okay, so this is the cover. It's blue. It's kind of hard to see. No, there, it's coming up. It does come in a few different colors. I think there's a yellow and white polka dot and maybe a pink one. So this blue is my favorite, so I'm really happy about that. And this cover has a little pocket here, so you could put in a photo or receipts or stickers. And it just kind of goes across like that to the back. Here's some information about it on the back, and also a shitajiki and a bookmark, which it just comes with. And then on the back it's got another pocket like this. So I am personally not very keen on these plastic covers, like the same with the cover on cover for the Hobonichi or the Weeks cover on cover, which a lot of people use. I just don't like the look of them. So that's another reason why I would be quite keen to put this in a traveler's notebook. But you can just use it like this. It's complete on its own. It's, you know, kind of a complete package. On the inside you have 3 credit card pockets here. And then on the back you do as well. And then obviously this pocket could also be used for storing stickers and sticky notes and all kinds of plannery goodness. So if we look at the setup, it's really interesting because, like I said, it's got these 3 books packaged into one. So the first book is basically an insert, and it says life. This is the life book, and it says that on each side because you're supposed to put it in like this, so you see the back part. Then the second one is the main planner. This is the weekly planner. And then the third one is this idea book that's just a blank notepad, well, gridded notepad. So I'll come to that in a minute. And so you can take these out, which I'm now going to do. So you can divide them into their component parts. So these are the two smaller booklets, and then this is the main planner. So you could just have the main planner like this on its own. So let me just take this out as well so that we can see all of them, what they look like without the cover, because I want to disassemble this and put it into a traveler's notebook at the end of the video. Okay, so this is the cover. It's very, very similar to a Hobonichi cover on cover, except that it has more pockets. And this is interesting. So when you take this, when the cover on cover off, you get this blue is actually not part of the cover, it's just a piece of paper and it says 2017 on it. And then underneath, this is the weekly planner itself. It says 2017 again, and it's kind of like the Molang diary, if anyone is familiar with that, where it's sort of like half bound, like it is actually bound, but the binding is pretty thin and the bookmarks are just in here at the top. They're not bound into it, so you can see where they start. So let's have a look. So first of all, the idea pad. This is the gridded notepad, and I'm just starting with this because there's not as much to say about it, just so that we can see what it has and then move on to the other things. So it's quite thick. It seems to me thicker than the Hobonichi notepads, if you are familiar with those. And it's Tomoe River paper. I didn't mention that, but that is one of the most important things to know about this planner, is that it's Tomoe River paper. And I think it's 52 GSM like the Hobonichi. It feels exactly the same to me. The paper is reasonably white, not like bright, stark white, but quite white. So I'd say it's pretty comparable to the paper in the cousin. Let's just compare. So this is the cousin and this is the Jibun Techo paper. So it looks pretty similar to me. The grids in the Jibun Techo look a little tiny bit smaller than in the cousin, which would be the same as the A6. I think that the week's grids might be a little bit smaller. Maybe they are comparable to this. Let's see. I think actually this is a little bit smaller than the week's grids as well. So I really like it. I like small grids, but that's just something to keep in mind if you're comparing it to the Hobonichi. So very similar to the weeks, it has this vertical line about a quarter or the fifth of the way through, so you could use this for headings if you're using it for bullet journaling. And then it's got a blank space here and a blank space here on every page, so that you can use it for, say, the date and a page number. So this is ideal if you wanted to use this as like a bullet journaling supplement along with the weekly planner. So I think that's really cool. Then we have the life book, and I'll just go through this and then show you the main planner, because I think that's the most exciting bit, although this is really cool as well. So the idea behind this is that you're supposed to use this book for your whole entire life. So you keep this forever, and then you just replace the weekly planner and the notepaper. So I think that's a really nice idea, because we all have this issue with planners, particularly bound planners, of the stuff that you want to transfer over from year to year and what you do with it. So in my case, I keep a separate memo booklet that I use to copy stuff over. Well, that I use for the stuff that I want to be able to keep from year to year, and I transfer it over from planner to planner. So this is the same concept as that, but I think it's really nice that it's built in, and also that it comes with all this information. So first it has this page that says Life's Dream. It has an explanation. This is all of the stuff that's in it, so we'll be going through this quickly. Then it has a 100 wishes list. So obviously you could use this for a running vision book. If you keep in mind this is supposed to last your whole life, you'd have to be quite sparing with it, although it does give you a lot of space here. It has these 4 columns, or you could use it for, you know, anything else and just put washi over the top if you wanted a running list. But if you keep in mind this is supposed to be your one book that you use forever, although obviously you could buy a replacement. Then you have personal motto, which I guess you could just use this to write down positive quotes or anything else really. It's just this nice blank list. Again, I think with all of these headings, it would be quite easy to cover them up with washi. I personally have something of an issue using a lot of washi and stickers with this very thin Tomoe River paper, because the paper is so delicate that I feel like the stickers often kind of, they weigh it down a lot more than they do with other paper. But I do use some stickers in my A6 Hobonichi, so I think, you know, in this case you could do that. Then you have a life plan, and it's got room for dates here, so it has 20 and then it's blank, so you could fill in the year. And I think Planner Girl told me what all of these mean, and of course I can't remember now, but it's like, you know, different sections for you to write in your plan, and then it goes on, so you've got 2 pages like that. Then it has this kind of perpetual calendar, and this is where you start to see some of the cool features of this planner. It's colored here, and this is the typical Jibun Techo font that they use throughout the whole thing. It's like a robot font. See with the numbers, it's like a kind of old printer sort of robotic font. This is actually not my favorite font. I prefer the Hobonichi font, but it gives it a very different look, and I really like the color. So you've got your January, February anniversaries, March anniversaries, April. You can see the colors here. I really like these colors. I think that this is something that sets this planner apart. And so you get 1 page per month, which I think is great because there's room to put in anything that you might ever fancy recording. And then you have this Japan travel map, and this, if I bring it closer, hopefully you can see, it's this kind of stylized old computer graphic look, which I think is really cool for a map. And then there's a world travel map, which I really like. I know I always say, like in the Moleskine, in the beginning of the Moleskine, that there are these pages which I don't find very useful, and they're things like this, but I think that in this case, because it's a separate booklet, it's quite nice having these. And I guess the idea is here that you could label the places where you've been or the places where you want to go. Then it has this section called My News, and it starts at age 0, and every year, every page, every double page spread, it gives you 5 years. So this is really meant to be used over your whole entire life. So you're recording events, it gives you, looks like 1 line per month. So it goes from 1 to 12, and so that's age 0, and then age 1 up to age 4. So this is just left blank for you to decide what the categories are. Then it has family news and world news. So obviously for most people, unless they get this when they were born, they wouldn't be able to use these pages unless you went back retroactively. But I think that this is still another good place where you could keep information like passwords or something that you want to be able to roll over from year to year. So then the news just goes on until 99. So I really like the wide-ranging nature of this. They've got everything covered. So this is the last page. There you are. You've got from age 0 to age 99. And then at the end it has a family tree, and it has 2 pages for that. So I think that's really cool as well. And then an emergency contact list, a password hint list. So never mind when I said before you could use that other space for passwords, because they've already got a passwords page. And then they've got a finances section where you can keep track of cards, and this is like kind of unchanging stuff, I think, or things that you can use long term rather than a budget, which we're going to come to in the other booklet. And then a medical record, and then finally favorite photos on the back. So this book I think is quite interesting. I don't feel like it's essential. Certainly I wouldn't feel like I had to have this, although having it, I'm sure that it would be possible to think of lots of cool uses for it, because it does, you know, have all these different options, and I think it would be easy to repurpose some of them. So those are the 2 side booklets. Now on to the main event, the weekly planner. So this is a 12-month, yearly, monthly, weekly planner. So I think this is one of the first ways where it sets itself apart from the Hobonichi. It's quite distinct in that the Hobonichi, whether it's the A6 or the A5, is predominantly a daily planner. Obviously with the cousin you have the weekly spread as well, but this is more like the weeks in that it's just a weekly planner. It doesn't have a daily spread, although because it comes with this booklet you could easily use this as a daily planner as well, and then, you know, just replace the booklets. So when you open it, it has this cream colored end page, and then 2017 here, and everything is gridded, and it's again the same Tomoe River paper, the same shade as the other booklets. And it's got this table of contents at the beginning where it tells you how to use the Jibun Techo. And so it lists all of the things that it's got here. So if you want to see quickly what it contains, you can pause that. Because I think the thing that's interesting about this is that in comparison to the Hobonichi, it has a lot more extras. The Hobonichi is very simple in that it just gives you the calendars and then it has a bit of extra information at the end, but it's basically just devoted to the yearly, monthly, weekly, and daily pages, whereas this has a lot of extra stuff, which I'll show you. So this is a sample week. It shows you how to use it, which if you don't read Japanese is kind of hard to understand. Planner Girl went through some of these with me, and Planner Girl 777. But you know, so there's like one of them is like relax or work meeting, things like that. So it just kind of gives you a sample week. Then it has a yearly calendar. So you get 4 years, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, which is also different from the Hobonichi because the Hobonichi just gives you 3 years. It gives you the current year on one page and then the previous and upcoming year on half a page each. So this gives you 4. And you can see this is one of the typical hallmarks of the Jibun Techo is that Saturdays are blue and Sundays are orange. So it's a Monday start, by the way. Then you get a vertical year on 2 pages, which I really, really like. This is similar to the Hobonichi vertical yearly spread, except that this one runs over 4 pages and the Jibun Techo one is only 2 pages. So it's more compact if you want to see the whole year. The columns obviously are a lot narrower if you compare them to the columns in the cousin. I'm just comparing this to the cousin because it's the closest in size. The cousin is bigger because it's a true A5 rather than an A5 slim, but it's still the closest. So I really like these. I think they're probably most suited to tracking. So I use the one in my weeks for tracking my bank balance, but you know, you could use it for habit tracking because it's got the grids, which makes it really convenient to tick off the little boxes. You could also use it as a yearly overview schedule. So I think that these are great and they have a lot of possibilities. And again, you have Saturdays in blue and Sundays in orange, and then it also marks Japanese holidays in orange as well. Then it has an age chart. So if you're familiar with the Hobonichi, you know about this. So it tells you if you looked up somebody who was born in 1918, they would be 99, and it goes all the way down to 2017. So someone who's born this year will be 0. And this one is in color, and I love the colors. If I bring this up closer, please, you can see a bit better. Really colorful, I like that. So then it has My Dream 2017, so this is great for a vision board, goals. In contrast to the one in the Life book, which is like kind of your life vision, this is just for the year, and it gives you quite a lot of room. Then it has a money plan, so this is your annual budget. So this one is fixed expenses, and this one is more flexible expenses. So it has things like transport and restaurants and entertainment, and then, you know, this has, I think, electricity and water and stuff like that. And then it has your income. So I think that this is great. If you wanted to do a monthly budget and have it in your planner, this is all set up for you. So this is what I mean when I say that there's a lot more extra stuff in this than there is in the Hobonichi. Obviously, you could set one up on your own in a planner that doesn't have this using blank notes pages, but I think it's really nice just having it like that already. Then it has this sample week. So I think that this is quite cool because it's like a timetable, but it gives you a whole week. So you could lay out what your week normally looks like. So this would be perfect for routines. And I think that this is something which is actually missing from pretty much every other planner that I know of. Paper Blanks has something similar. It has a timetable, but this is, I think, really, really ideal because it looks exactly like a normal week. So you could plan out, like, say you have a class on Tuesday evening, take out the recycling on Monday evening. You could plan out everything that you do as a routine, which is something that I have often been trying to think of how to do, and I haven't found an ideal solution for mapping out routines other than copying them out over and over again in a weekly planner. So I think that this is the ideal solution to that, because you just, anything that you do on a repeated basis, you just look in here and you see, okay, it's Monday, I have to take out the recycling, and then you don't have to copy it over and over again. You just have to look at this one page. So I think that's a really cool idea. Then you have a map of Japan, and it's the same as the one in the Life book, except that one was green and this one is black and white, but it's the same kind of robot computer font printout, pixelated. That's the word I was looking for. Then you have favorite phrases, which again, I think for this, if you just had this book and you didn't have the Life book, you could use this for motivational quotes for the year. Obviously for anything else that you wanted, but that's something that comes to mind. And then a recommendation list, so like books and movies and things like that, which I think is really convenient to have as well, because I have my planner split into work and personal, as you know, and I keep recommendations for movies and books in my weeks, which is my personal planner, and I just made a list for it. But I think it's really nice having it here like this, because then it's already set up for you, and you just go to this page and then you could, say, put films and TV on one side and books on the other side or something, and then you can like just tick off when you've looked at them or read them. Oh, sorry, no, I take it back. I forgot, there's a book list as well. So you could put book recommendations here, I guess, and then just keep this for, say, music and TV and film. In my case, it's pretty much only films and TV. Those seem to be the things that people recommend to me that I write down. And the book list, it has these little mood tracker smiley faces, so you can take off how much you liked it, which I think is quite a nice feature. And this is something that we'll see recurring later in the weekly spread. And then you have movie list. My goodness. So I was ahead of myself with the recommendations. So the recommendations, actually, if you wanted to, you could use them for something else. Like, I don't know, what else do people get recommended? Restaurants, shops, other things, because then you've got a movie list, and then you have gifts received and gifts given. So again, like, I don't think I would actually use this for this, but I would use it like maybe as a wish list, or things that I had in mind to get people if I'm going somewhere and I wanted to bring back something for somebody, or, you know, birthdays or that kind of thing. And then you have a promise list. So I'm not sure what this is. Planner Girl, if you're watching and you can explain this, let me know, because I don't know if this is like promises that you, things that you want to do or promises that you've made, but in any case, it's just another fantastic checklist with 4 lines. So I think that this is really, really useful for the year. And then you have just lined, well, this is all gridded, but it's got like kind of some lines ruled out in different colors. And then this one as well, it has like it's divided into 2 sections. It's kind of hard to see because the next page is showing through, but there, if you look at it like that, it's divided. These are both divided the same way, basically. They have like kind of 2 boxes shaded and then 2 boxes unshaded, and there's a little vertical line on the left, kind of like in the notepad book that we saw. So you could use this if you wanted to for any kind of tracking, any sort of like yearly thing. I really like the kind of possibilities that this gives, because it's blank. So in my case, I'm thinking if I was using this for work, I would use it for students' coursework marks, but there are all kinds of things you could use this for, so I think that's awesome. And then we start with this yearly tracker in a kind of horizontal format. So I think that this is really cool, because this just gives you a different way of tracking the year. And again, it's colorful. It starts in November 2016. So if you were to order this before the year started, you'd be able to start using it straight away, which is amazing. It's perfectly designed for planner addicts in mind. So this starts with the beginning of November, and then, which is a Tuesday, and then the remaining months. So yeah, November, December, and again Saturday blue, Sunday orange, and then it goes through the whole year, and you've got these same colors that we saw beforehand in the Life book for the anniversaries. So this is like a repeating color scheme. I think that the color scheme is consistent over the two books. So you see that May here is green and June is a kind of steel blue. It's the same in this book. So once you get used to the colors, it's kind of like the Hobonichi, how the Hobonichi colors are the same in the A6 and the A5, and they're the same from year to year. So once you get familiar with this color system, then you'll always be able to recognize, oh, it's September. September is gray. I feel like there's less variety in these colors than in the Hobonichi. So you see it starts recurring again. So November is green, just like May. And then December is pink, which is like March. It's a slightly different shade, but I feel like it's a bit more similar than the Hobonichi months. But that's just my impression. I could be wrong, because some of the Hobonichi ones are also quite similar shades. And then it goes until April of 2018. So it gives you some nice time for forward planning. So this, again, as in the case of the vertical year on 2 pages, there's not a huge amount of room here. Sorry, I've lost the vertical year on 2 pages. It's somewhere back here. Anyway, there's not a lot of room. So I think that this would probably be best suited for tracking again. So maybe the other one could be used as a yearly overview where you just write down when you're going to be away, let's say when you're on holiday, when you're, you know, like when, I don't know, birthdays are, things like that. And this one is very, very well suited for tracking. So you could put in, say, water or exercise, and then you just tick them off. That's really all you have room for. You couldn't write more than one letter, say, of a code in this, but I think it's great for that. I just love this sort of thing. Even if I can't always think of what to do with them, I really like the fact that they're there, because if you do think of something that you needed it for, it's just like perfect. Then we get on to our monthly spread. So this again is like the Hobonichi in that it's got all of the months at the beginning, I mean after all of this stuff, and it has them before the weeks. They're not interspersed with the weeks, if you see what I mean. So again, it starts in November, which is ideal. You can start using it really early. And it's a Monday start, which is my favorite. So you can see here that the whole week, the weekdays are in green, then Saturday's blue, Sunday's orange, as we've seen already. It's got this robot font, and then it has a checklist down the bottom, and the checklist runs all the way over on the side as well. So you've got lots of check boxes. And the whole thing is gridded anyway, so you could use the ones in between if you wanted to have one task per line, let's say. But this gives you a lot of room if you're using this as a monthly layout, as a kind of monthly master task list. I think this is fantastic for that. And then in the boxes, you get these little smiley faces for mood tracking. So there's like one smiley face, one neutral face, and one sad face, which I think is quite convenient, because I don't do mood tracking, but then maybe if I had this here and I didn't have to add it in myself, I would do it, because I think often if something is already there built in for you, it's like, why not use it? And then you have 3 months at a glance at the bottom. So you've got the previous month, the current month, and the upcoming month, which is a nice touch. So you can immediately see that in comparison to the Hobonichi monthly view, this is a lot more colorful. So this is the Hobonichi. It's just black and white with red for Sunday, or gray and white. So this is really colorful. I like this. I've heard on a couple of other reviews people feeling like it's a bit busy with all of the colors. I really like the colors, especially because, like I said, with the very thin Tomoe River paper, I feel like it's not ideal for a lot of stickers in washi, because it's just the paper is so delicate that I kind of really like it just on its own for the most part. So I think that this is nice because it just adds a touch of color, and when you open it, it just immediately makes you happy. The boxes are a good size. Obviously they are a bit smaller than in the cousin, because the cousin is wider. So if we compare them, let's see. It looks like it's one grid smaller, so you lose one row of boxes in this compared to the cousin. So it's actually still quite a bit of space. And you can see that the sides have this tab, just like in the Hobonichi. It's actually harder to see it in here for some reason. If you look at the side, I feel like compared to the Hobonichi, you can't see where the months start and end as well, but it is tabbed. I keep comparing this to the Hobonichi just because I think that's the most obvious similar planner that a lot of people would be familiar with. So if you're curious about the Jibun Techo and you already know what the Hobonichi is like, it might be useful to have a comparison point. So then we have December, which is pink. January is gray. I think that these colors, the colors that you have at the top and also on the tab, are the same as the ones that we've already seen in the life book and in the yearly overview. Yeah, so you see May is the same green. So that goes throughout. So it's quite nice because everything coordinates. So your vertical yearly overview, your horizontal yearly overview, your month on 2 pages, everything coordinates. And like the Hobonichi, it gives you, and I guess a lot of other monthly calendars, it gives you the days that are not part of the current month in gray. Interesting thing about this that I've just noticed is I think that it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes compared to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes in the Hobonichi, which means that you'll never get a situation where you have some months that are a half box. So for example, here you see that was January, and January ended, it had these extra 2 days and they only got a half box. So in this one that will never happen because, let's go back to January, because it's got an extra box, just somehow because of the layout. I'm not sure how they've done that, but they've done it so that you'll never get a half box, which I think is really cool. This is something that you don't see very often or ever hardly in planners, where you actually have enough space that no matter how the month is oriented, like no matter what day it starts on, like this one starts on a Sunday and it has 31 days, so you end up with these extra 2 at the bottom, you'll always have full boxes for the whole month. So I think that's a really cool touch. So this goes until March 2018, so you've got a bit of time for forward planning, 3 extra months, which is nice. And then it goes into the weekly spread. So this is, I think, what we have all been waiting for. This is the heart of the planner, the weekly spread. So you already saw a little bit of what it looked like in that kind of blank weekly spread. So Monday start, and you have the weekdays in green, Saturday blue, Sunday orange. Holidays, obviously Japanese holidays, are in orange as well. And then this is in a different color, you see, and that is because it's following on from a previous month, I believe. So the colors of the week coordinate with the colors of the month, if that makes sense. So you know how we saw May was green. So that means that the colors of the weekdays at the top will also be green, and the same for November. November is green, but October is this steel gray. So if that makes sense, that's why you've got all of these different colors at the top of this week, but they won't always be like that. So this is December. December is pink, so your weekdays are pink. I hope that made sense. So the really interesting thing about this is, so first of all, on the left, you've got a checkbox. And so this is for your weekly to-dos, and it's the same as the monthly master to-do list in the monthly layout. Then at the top, you've got 2 months. You have the, I think it's the previous month and the current month. And then it tells you the week that you're in, and it tells you the week number in a little circle there. So I think that's really cool. Then you have your boxes at the top. So you've got 3 grids, like 3 lines at the top. And the top one is weather. So it's got all these little icons. So it has like a sun, wind, rain, all of that kind of stuff. So you could really easily do weather tracking. And then you could write in the temperature, but you'd need to have very, very small handwriting. I don't do weather tracking, but I know it's quite popular for people to do it. So you could also put the temperature in down here. Or you could put in something like focus for the day or something like that. It's got 2 lines, and like I said, the grids are quite small, so you can't fit a huge amount in. But you could, or you could use it for tracking or something like that. Then we have the timeline. The timeline goes from midnight until midnight. So this is really interesting because it's a 24-hour timeline, which is something that I have never seen in another planner, except technically the Hobonichis have it, but as I have discussed in other videos, because they give you so little room, like you get 1 line each and it's kind of squished, both in the A6 and the cousin, it's the same size, it's quite squished, so I feel like you can't actually make very good use of that. That's just my... Somehow this one I feel like is a bit more approachable the way that it's laid out. I'm not sure why. I think it's because each hour is labeled, as opposed to the Hobonichi where only every 3 hours are labeled. So it really feels like if you needed to use this for something, you could. And I absolutely love this because I am totally a night person. And so I often end up doing things, you know, until like midnight or 1 a.m., which is later than most planners. And even though, you know, I'm at home at that time, I might be, you know, working or doing things that it might be nice to be able to record or plan for. So I think that this is an excellent feature of this planner, the way it's laid out. So you've got from midnight until 7, you get 1 hour per line, which I think is fine for those times, because most of us, unless you're, you know, working a night shift where you need to be able to record a lot of stuff, aren't doing a lot. Even I, you know, like usually will go to sleep by 1 or 2 at the latest, and, you know, wouldn't need more than an hour for recording. So I think that this is really nice how they give it to you in case you do need it for something. If you don't need to use these hours, then you could very easily just use this as a to-do list. So I think that this is just a great setup. Then from 7, there's a line here. So there's a, you know, like a full line as opposed to a dotted line, because the rest of it is dot grid. Not dot grid, it's like the Hobonichi grids. You know what I mean. Then from 7 onwards, 7 until midnight, you get 1 line per half hour, which is what I love. As you know, if you've seen any of my other videos, I'm always talking about that. I really like having half an hour per line. Like I said, these lines are very small, so you would have to write really small if you want to stick to the timeline, which is fine with me, and I think that the grids help to write small, so that doesn't bother me. But if you have big handwriting, this is not going to be the ideal setup for you, using it by the hour, because they're quite small and also the columns are narrow. So if you think of the cousin weekly layout, let me just show you a blank page in the cousin. So for comparison, you can see that again, I'd say it's probably 1, and maybe you probably lose I'd say 1 box worth per grid, so per column. So it's narrower. It's not a huge amount narrower, but it is narrower than the cousin in comparison. So you can't write a lot on each line, but you know, you can put in appointments and things like that. And also because it's got this gridded grid format, it's easy to block off blocks of time. It gives you a full line every hour. So you can see every half hour it's a dotted grid line, but then every hour it's a full line, if that makes sense, as opposed to the Hobonichi where the whole thing is just the dotted grid. And then that continues up until midnight, and then at the bottom you've got this extra space, which I'll talk about in a second. So the other really interesting thing about this is you can see that from midnight until 6:30, it looks like it's shaded in, and then again from around 4:45 until midnight. And Planner Girl 77 worked out that it's showing you the sunrise and sunset. So these ones that are not shaded are the daylight hours, and the ones that are shaded are the nighttime hours. Obviously this is Japanese time, so it won't be exactly right if you live in Europe or Australia or the Americas, but it still gives you some kind of an idea of when the daylight hours are, which I think is such a cool feature. And this is something I've never seen in another planner. I don't know really, I mean, practically, I guess it's not that necessary, but psychologically it is kind of useful to be able to know, okay, it's going to be dark now. So when I get home, it's going to be dark, which sometimes for me, especially with the dogs, like, you know, if I come home and take them out for their walk, it's kind of like nice to be able to anticipate, like, oh, it'll be light or it'll be dark. Especially in winter when it gets dark early and you don't always expect it, and it's like, oh, it's dark. Anyway, so I think that's a nice feature. What it does do, though, I think, is that it contributes to making this page feel very busy. And one of the other reviewers noted this. It's Belle B. Cooper, who has a very thorough review on the Jibun Techo, and that's linked down below. So she said that all of these colors, and I think also the circles and the shading and the not shading, combines to make this page feel very busy in comparison to the Cousin weekly spread, which is quite clean and simple. So I actually quite like this. I like the different colors and the busyness. I think it can make it feel a little bit more like stuff is going on before you've even started using the planner, but that doesn't bother me at all. The one thing that I would change, I think, in terms of design is the robot font, but I showed it to James and he loved it. So obviously that's just personal preference, and it could be that after I've been using this for a while, I will also grow attached to the robot font, because it certainly is quite distinctive. But I like the different colors. So that's your hourly layout, which I just think is amazing. It's really, really, really good, whatever your schedule is. And this is the only planner that I've ever seen that does actually literally cater to everybody, no matter what your schedule is. The Hobonichi is the one that comes closest because it has such a long timeline, but this one is even longer. So then at the bottom, you've got this blank space, which I believe you're supposed to use for journaling a little bit about your day, but obviously you can use it for whatever you want to. So I would use this for to-dos. And then it's got the little mood tracker here. So you've got 3 lines: happy face, neutral face, sad face. And then it has 3 boxes here with a sunrise, sun, and a star. And so this is supposed to be for meal planning. So you've got breakfast, lunch, dinner, and you get 2 lines for each. So you could fit in snacks if you wanted to be thorough about it. And I really like the fact that all of this is built in, because I think often we try to sort these solutions out for ourselves. So for example, in the Hobonichi, I know some people use these 3 boxes at the top for top 3 goals for the day, and other people use this for meal planning. So there's, I think, an attempt to kind of try to find ways to adapt the system that we've got and use it for all these different things. And I think it's quite nice that they've got this here for you, because, you know, if you're thinking, oh, meal planning, it's like, oh, it's right there. There's a space for it. The one thing that I guess can be a drawback to that is that it's a little bit limiting. It's like they've decided what they want you to use this space for. So thinking of the Erin Condren, when the Erin Condren had the morning, noon, or morning, afternoon, and night boxes, and a lot of people were covering them up, then they took them out because they wanted to give people the flexibility. I kind of feel like this is sort of like that, in that they're telling you have to use it for this. This is meal tracking, this is meal planning, this is meal tracking, sorry. What? Mood tracking. I can't speak. Anyway, obviously it's not difficult to ignore this. If you wanted to use this whole thing for to-dos, which I think would probably in some cases be maybe more practical, then you could. Or I think the idea is that you're supposed to use this column on the left for your weekly to-dos. And so all of your to-dos go here, and then this is your appointments, and then this is journaling and mood, and this is meal planning. But it would certainly be very easy to adapt. So the way that I use the Hobonichi is probably more how I would use this, where I would use this for to-dos that haven't been delegated to a specific day, and then this would be daily to-dos. But having the option of using it in a different way, I think is really, really nice. So moving on, this is the current week. So you can see we had January, which was this gray color, and then you have February, which is this light brown kind of taupe color. And so it's got the 2 different monthly tabs on the side to show you that the week has got both of those. And you have 2 bookmarks, one navy and one red. So you could use one for your monthly spreads and one for your weekly spreads. And that's how it continues. So you can see whenever you've got a week that has more than 1 month in it, you get 2 monthly tabs on the sides. And the monthly tabs just carry on in the same colors as the daily marker there at the top. And it goes until January 2018, so it gives you the first 2 weeks of January. And then at the end, it just has looking back on 2017. So Planner Girl 777 made the point that this planner seems to be much more about reflection than some other planners. The name Jibun Techo means self book, so it's like self notebook, self planner. And it does have a lot more built-in areas for reflection. So it has the mood tracker, it has all of those lists of visions and recommendations and favorite phrases, and now it has this looking back on 2017, so it gives you 4 lines per month. Sorry, yeah, 4 lines per month, but it's a double page spread, so you actually get quite a lot of room to record for the month, and then it has some extra blank lines at the bottom. And again, these are half shaded, so like if you use this per week, let's say, the first 2 weeks are unshaded and the second 2 weeks are shaded, or however you wanted to use it, then you get 2 blank grid note pages, which obviously you don't really need since you've got this whole gridded notebook, but it's always nice to have blank note pages in the actual book. And then there's a Tokyo Underground map and maps for all of the main cities in Japan, which I think is quite interesting to look at, even if you don't live in Japan, and it's very colorful, so I like this. And the fact that it's at the end of the book somehow makes me feel better about it than the way they do it in the Moleskine, where it's at the beginning when you just want to get to the planner. So I think if it's at the end, it's okay. And then it has world time differences. And I know I've always said with the Moleskine, like, why do they put this in? I don't find this very useful. But believe it or not, I actually did consult this a couple of days ago because I wanted to check if St. Petersburg was 2 or 3 hours ahead of the UK. So I take it back. It is useful sometimes. And knowing that it's there, I think, makes you want to look at it. So this has got all the world time zones. It's also good as a world map. And I like the fact that it's in color as well. It's very nice blue-green. Then you have personal data at the end and this end page here. And that's the final end page. And that's it. This is what it looks like on the back. It's Kokuyo. That's the company that makes it. So there you have it. These are the 3 components of the Jibun Techo. So the final thing I wanted to show you, aside from the fact that it comes with the shitajiki, as I mentioned, which I haven't quite figured out exactly how to use. So I think that the idea is that you would use it, let's say this is the current week. I think that you would put it like this and then hold it, like clip it onto the back like this. But because the paper is so delicate, I'm sort of afraid of messing something up. So I haven't actually managed, I haven't been brave enough to put it all the way on. So I still have to experiment with that. But the thing that I wanted to show you is, if you've got these 3 booklets, what you can do with it. So Planner Girl 777 and I made this awesome discovery, which is that the Webster's Pages Traveler's Notebook fits this absolutely perfectly. So the Webster's Pages is officially standard size, but it's actually wider than standard size. This is an A5 Cadenette Notebooks Fodori. So you can see that the Webster's Pages is narrower, but if you compare it to a standard size insert, you can see that it's quite a bit wider. So a proper standard size Fodori would be kind of like that. This is quite a bit wider, but it's narrower than A5. And as it so happens, it's just exactly perfect for the A5 slim size of the Jibun Techo. So let me just show you this incredible discovery. So if you put this in here, and then you put in the idea book and the life book, you will see a most wondrous sight. And I couldn't believe this because I've had this Webster's Pages for about a year and I've never really found a perfect use for it. And I was just astounded that its moment has finally come. Ta-da! It fits perfectly. There's no overhang. It's just exactly right. There isn't, you know, too much extra space. It just fits amazingly. So I was really, really chuffed about that. I just think that's awesome because I think that this is a really, really nice way to carry it. For one thing, the fact that it's got the 3 books just kind of screams traveler's notebook at me. Secondly, then you get a pen loop, because the one thing that this doesn't have a pen loop, which is kind of odd because they've really thought of everything else and they've even included the pencil board. So I think that this makes it, you know, just a much nicer experience because you don't have the plastic and instead you have a beautiful traveler's notebook and you have all 3 of these in. If you only ordered this one, you could just use it on its own. Let me just take these 2 out. And that would still fit really well and it would just be a nice cover for it. You can also fit this into an A5 traveler's notebook, but you'll have quite a bit of overhang, so I don't think that that's ideal. You could either, let's see, I think it's a bit too tall to slot in there. Let's see, if we put this in here, you see this is a proper A5 size and there's just too much room. I know that doesn't bother some people. I'm like really picky about this sort of thing, so I just don't like that. I think it's too much overhang. This is another one. This is a Lyra Dory, and this is wide. I believe it was sold as standard wide rather than A5. So you can see it's a bit narrower than the A5. And it fits quite well in this as well. I'm not sure if she's making this size at the moment, but it fits really, really nicely in this too. And in fact, I think if you just have the single book, this one might, you know, be perfect because the Webster's Pages has got a little bit more room, so it kind of seems to be more satisfying if you've got the chunkiness of all 3 planners. But I think that a traveler's notebook is the ideal cover for this. So there you have it, the Jibun Techo. I think it's a really, really incredible planner. I like the idea of the 3 books, although I think that probably I would just use these 2. I'm thinking if I were to use this as a work planner, which I have contemplated, although on balance I can't give up my Hobonichi. I will talk a bit more about that in a second. I would probably just use this and this. So this would, you know, be the planner, and then this would be for notes, or sorry, that's the life book, the idea book. This would be either for when I needed daily pages or for work-related notes. So if you put these 2 together, they basically give you the equivalent of the cousin, because you've got the weekly spread, and then with this you can have daily pages. The only thing is obviously that the cousin has dated daily pages, and you know the daily pages give you enough for the whole year, whereas with this, because it's a slim booklet, I would say this probably has, I'm guessing, but maybe 80 pages, seems like 60 to 80. So it's quite substantial. This would last you a while, but you would have to replace it at some point before the end of the year if you were writing a lot in it. The advantage of this over the cousin is that this is a lot slimmer. So if you just had these 2 compared to the cousin, you see the difference. And this is quite appealing if you're schlepping this around every day. It's probably more similar to the cousin avec, but the appealing thing about this is that you get the whole year, you know, certainly for the weekly pages. And it's also a little bit, well, it's narrower because it's, you know, the A5 slim, and I feel like it's also a little bit more, a bit lighter, because the Hobonichi has quite a thick cardboard cover, whereas this is just, it's a little bit firmer than, it's not just paper, but it's you can see it's pretty flimsy, which is okay because it's, you know, designed to go in the cover. So if you were just carrying this, it would give you a lot of scope. You'd have all the daily notes and you'd have your whole weekly and all of this other stuff that it gives you, but you wouldn't have the bulk. And I think some of the things that make this really cool and set it apart are the fact that you have all of this space to record lots of other stuff apart from just the monthly and weekly planning. So I think that this is just a really, really great option. I would say compared to the Hobonichi, I still feel like on balance I would go for the Hobonichi instead of this if I had to choose. Fortunately, I don't have to choose. That is the joy of being a planner addict. The main reasons that I would still go for the Hobonichi are, one, the font. I just cannot make friends with a robot font. I really, really like the Hobonichi font, and I like the Hobonichi design. I don't mind the color. I like the color. I like the fact that this is colorful, but I feel like the Hobonichi layout just looks a lot simpler and cleaner, and some of that is to do with the font, but some of it is somehow just, I think a lot of it might be the font and maybe the big numbers, but I think that this is also really nice and very similar in a lot of ways to the grid in the Tomoe River paper. And then with this, I think that the cousin for me is better because it's a bit wider and it gives you a bit more room, and I like having that much room. I feel like the cousin is already as narrow as I would want it for work. But I think that if this was a planner, if this was like just your kind of overview weekly schedule, this would be absolutely fine. And I really, really like it for that. The other reason that I would stay with the Hobonichi, just like for me as my main work planner, is because I like having the whole year together, and I like having all the notes pages in the same book. And that's just because at the end of the year when I go to archive it, I just take it out of the cover and put it on the shelf, and then if I ever need to refer back to it, it's all there in one book. And I mean, you know that I'm always talking about how I love bound planners because you have the whole year together. And so I think if I were using this and then also using this, it would feel a bit more fragmented, and that's the reason that I don't go for traveler's notebooks. I like using them as covers, but not individual booklets, because I like having everything together. So on balance, I think that this is an awesome planner. It's a really cool idea, and I think if you like the traveler's notebook type system, this is much more like that. So it's kind of like a cross between a traveler's notebook system and a Hobonichi, and it's just like got a really cool layout. It has this amazing 24-hour calendar. I really like the colors. I think it's definitely worth trying if you like the idea of the Hobonichi and Hobonichi type planners. It's awesome. So you might be wondering, what on earth are you going to use this for? And this is indeed a challenge, because as you know, I have no shortage of planners, and Planner Girl 777 actually bought me two other planners as well, which I also really want to show you that, because they're also fantastic. So I have been contemplating this for the past few days. What am I going to do with these? And I'm thinking with this one at the moment that I'm going to try out using this as an overview weekly planner of my whole week, work and personal combined, which I know sounds a bit mad, but I'm just curious to try it. So I think that's what I'm going to do with it. And I'd like to use this as a proper planner rather than just using it for one specific thing, because it's got the hourly layout. I feel like it would be really useful for that. So I hope that you enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any questions about this that I didn't mention in the video. I would be happy to answer them, because there's not a huge amount of information about the Jibun Techo out there. So I would be delighted if you would like to know anything. I hope you enjoyed this. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back again soon. Bye!